This is the lecture on how to do a complete sentence outline for speech class, for public speaking, and for business and professional speaking. You will see two documents on your screen. You will see on the right, there is an explanation document for the complete sentence outline, and then you will see the actual structure that you will use. You can refer to the document on the right for the explanation of each part of the outline as it corresponds to the one on the left. I'm going to walk through that so you know exactly what every piece of this outline is for and why we use it. We use a complete sentence outline because we do extemporaneous speaking in this class. We do not type out our speeches in a paragraph form and read them to the audience. We structure them with a structure like you see on the left so that we have a visual picture all in one place of all the ideas that we want to say in our speech from the very beginning to the very end. You will see on the left that it is very specific. The things that are on the left in this document need to be on your document that you turn in on the day that you give your presentation. This is going to help you build your presentation as you think through your ideas. You will then, once this is filled in, you will condense this down onto index cards, and you can bring the index cards to class with you on the day of your speech and use your index cards during the presentation. This document you will submit to me before you begin giving your presentation. So let's talk about what this document actually does for us. I'm going to go through each portion of it as you think through the topic that you're going to use for your presentation. Now, the speech is going to be, we're going to go over the first speech, which is the how-to demonstration speech. I'm going to use an example throughout the lecture so that you understand exactly what goes in these spaces, and then you can adapt that to your topic. The first thing you see is your title. The title will be the very last thing that you add to your presentation. If you look over on the explanation document, you can see that there is an explanation of what goes in a title, but that's the last thing you put in your speech. The first thing you want to start thinking about is your general purpose. What is the purpose of this speech? Are we going to inform? Are we going to persuade? Are we going to entertain? What is it that we're going to do in this presentation? So for a how-to demonstration speech, we're going to teach our audience something. So we would use, in this blank right here, we would type in to inform. You can see over here on the objectives, the general purpose. It's the broad purpose of your speech, and it should be spelled out. The most common types are to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. You could also have to inspire, or to commemorate, or to introduce, and so on. Pretty simple. The first thing we want to type in is to inform. Now we need to decide what we want to specifically inform about. What is our specific purpose for this speech? So when you see on the lecture document the specific purpose states exactly what you want to accomplish in your speech. Okay? So if I'm going to teach you something, how about I teach how to have good oral hygiene in your mouth? How to keep your teeth clean is what my speech is going to be about. So my specific purpose would be to inform my audience on how to have proper oral hygiene. Pretty simple. So now I have to have a central idea. My central idea is going to get a little more specific, and it's going to be the nuts and bolts of what I actually want to get across to my audience. So my central idea might sound something like this. Good oral hygiene includes proper brushing, flossing, and rinsing. So to have the nuts and bolts of my speech right there in front of me, I have a central idea statement that says good oral hygiene includes, put my L in there, proper brushing, flossing, and rinsing. So my main points in my presentation are going to be brushing, flossing, and rinsing. You see that? These are the main points of my presentation. So Now that I know what my main points are going to be, the things that I really want to get across to my audience, I need to start working on the body of my speech, okay? I'm going to scroll down on this lecture document so we can get to the body. You'll see information on the introduction, but we're not going to do the introduction yet. We're going to work on the body first. So here is the body of my presentation. So here's the body. Let's think. If we know that my main points are going to be brushing, flossing, and rinsing, then my main point 1, which is represented by a Roman numeral, all main points are represented by Roman numerals, would look like this. Teaching proper good oral hygiene. That's my main point 1, represented by my first Roman numeral. My second main point is going to be teaching good, proper flossing for good oral hygiene. And then my main point 3 is teaching proper rinsing for good oral hygiene. So do you see how the main points, 1, 2, and 3, represented by my Roman numerals, are the same main points that I previewed in my central idea statement up there? You want to make sure that those always match. So let's talk about our first main point, which is proper brushing for good oral hygiene. First main point. I'm color coding these for lecture purposes only. You don't have to color code them. My first, you'll see that my first main point is brushing, teaching proper brushing for good oral hygiene, and I have an A, B, and a C. My A, B, and C's are capital letters, and they represent what I want to say about my main point, which is learning how to brush. The A could be choosing the proper toothbrush. And I would explain to my audience how to choose the proper toothbrush. My B might be how long to brush my teeth. And then my C might be how hard or soft to brush my teeth. Pretty simple. These are the explanations or my subpoints that I'm going to use to explain my first main point. So now that I've said everything in my first main point, I can move on to my second main point, but I have to have a transition statement. So a transition statement is something that is going to transition your audience from the first main point to the second main point. And it would sound something like this. Now that you know how to brush properly, let's move on to flossing. It transitions your audience from your first main point and lets them know you're moving on to your second main point. So my second main point, teaching proper flossing for good oral hygiene. My A might be choosing the correct type of floss for your mouth. Now you'll see that my first explanation is choosing the correct type of floss. I have a 1 and 2 indented here because there's a couple of things I want to say about choosing the correct type of floss. The first thing I want to say is choosing a waxed floss. And the second thing I want to talk about is choosing a regular floss or an unwaxed floss. Let's go unwaxed floss. So the reason I'm distinguishing between the two is because I want to tell my audience that there's a reason you might choose waxed floss, or there's a reason you might choose unwaxed floss. Maybe I'm going to explain if you have braces, you don't want to use a waxed floss, or dentures, or maybe I want to say using an unwaxed floss is better for people with tight spaces between their teeth. That just kind of helps me understand what my thought process is on why I have two things I want to say about choosing the correct type of floss for your mouth. The second thing I may want to explain is how long to floss your mouth. I may or may not have a 1 and a 2. I can do away with those if I don't have two things that I really want to get across on my outline about how long to floss your mouth. So we can have an A, we can have a B, and I also need a C here. I might want a C because I have another thing I would like to say about, oops, sorry, trying to line that up, about flossing your teeth. My C might be what to do if your gums bleed. And then I would explain what to do if your gums begin to bleed while you're flossing your teeth, and maybe why they're bleeding. So you can see that I have an A, B, and a C. My A has two things that I want to explain about it. And then I've got my whole main point 2 finished. As you can see, flossing was my second main point. That matches my central idea. So now we're done with our flossing main point. We need to transition our audience to move on to the third main point. It'd sound like something like this. Now that you know how to properly brush and floss, let's talk about how to rinse your mouth. And then we already established that my third main point is teaching proper rinsing, which also is in my central idea statement for good oral hygiene. My A might be how long to swish while rinsing. And my B might be choosing the correct type of rinse for your specific needs. So my first one would be choosing a rinse for tartar control, or choosing a rinse for plaque. Depending on the needs of our mouth, we might want to explain both types if somebody has more of an issue with one over the other. You can see I have an A and a B. My B has two things that I wanted to say, so I indented and put a 1 and a 2. I could have a C if I needed it, or a D or an E, depending on how many things I want to say about rinsing. This right here, this body will change and adapt depending on your topic. You might have 2 main points. You might have it all the way to 5 main points. And the specific explanations, which are your subpoints, will change depending on what you have to say about your topic. You always want to have at least 2 main points, but no more than 5 main points. Okay, now let's begin talking about our introduction. We're going to go back up to introduction. The first thing you'll notice in the introduction is that there's 2 parts. There's attention material and there's orienting material. The attention material will be the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you begin your presentation. Your objectives up here are not spoken during your presentation. They're just to get your ideas flowing. So we put them on the outline just to make sure we know where our thought process are going. But when we start to speak in our outline, we'll begin with our attention material. The first thing you need to understand about attention material is that it's the first part of the introduction, and you want it to grab the interest of the listeners and make them want to listen to the entire speech. Some good techniques for grabbing attention are to relate a story, ask a question, cite a quotation, arouse curiosity, provide a visual aid or a demonstration, or give some sort of an incentive to listen. Now, I could ask a question and I could say, how many of you know that not keeping your mouth clean can kill you? You still don't know what my topic's going to be about when I say that, but I've drawn you in. Maybe I give you a statistic that says 4,000 people in America die every year from heart disease because of the bacteria that's in their mouth, because they didn't keep their mouth clean. Those are things that I can say as attention material that will grab the audience's attention and bring them in. You never want to start your presentation with something like, hi, my name is John, and I'm going to talk about how to brush your teeth. If you start a presentation like that, it makes the audience feel like you're talking down to them, or maybe they already know how to brush their teeth and they're not going to listen. You want to give them a reason to be pulled in and want to listen. So with our example, our attention material might be to ask a question. How many of you know that you can die if you don't brush your teeth properly? And then I might say the statistic that we talked about. 4,000 people die every year of heart disease due to poor oral hygiene. Now, that's not a true statistic, but it's just an example. So I've given a statistic. You see the statistic that I gave, and I asked a question. So I did two things to draw you in. The orienting material has three specific parts to it. The first thing is to let your audience know what your topic is. This is where you can say your name and reveal your topic. So I might say, hi, my name is Jill, and I am going to tell you how to have proper oral hygiene. The B is going to be my credibility statement. How do I know that, how do I know, how do you know as an audience that I know what I'm talking about? I have to prove to you that I am knowledgeable about this subject. So my credibility would be, my father is a dentist and I have worked in his office every summer since I was 13. So that gives me some credibility. I've worked in a dentist's office. My dad's a dentist, so maybe I really do know what I'm talking about. And then my C is my preview statement. I have to preview my main points with my central idea. So I'm going to take this statement right here, and I'm going to use it as my central idea in my preview statement. So I would say, good oral hygiene includes proper brushing, flossing, and rinsing. And then you would explain to us that we are going to talk about that in our presentation. Okay, so I'm going to take off a little bigger so it matches the rest. Okay. You want to make sure that the last thing, that C, that preview of your main points, is going to be the same main points that you have in your central idea. So this outline, you will notice, do you notice that it's in complete sentences, which is why we call it a complete sentence outline. You want to make sure it's in complete sentences so that you know your solid, complete thought that you had about that information you want to say in your presentation. So always use complete sentences. So now we have our introduction and we have the body. Let's move to the conclusion. The conclusion also has two parts. You have a summary and a clincher. The summary is truly just a restatement of the main points you covered in the body. You want to make sure that you signal the end of your presentation by saying something like in closing, or you can say in conclusion. I have told you how to properly brush your teeth. And then you're going to remind us that you told us how to floss your teeth. And then we taught how to rinse your mouth. I'm quickly restating those main points that are my main points and up here in my Roman numerals. So here they are: brushing, flossing, and rinsing. Those match the Roman numerals as well as my central idea statement. So my summary needs to restate my main points. I signal the end of my speech and I restate my main points, and then I have to have a clincher. Now, a clincher is the same type of thing as your attention getter, but it ends the speech in an impactful, memorable way. You can, again, cite a quotation. You can issue a challenge. You can give an illustration. You can refer back to the introduction. You can show a picture. Maybe in the introduction, one of my attention material was to show a picture of a really, really dirty mouth. And I would ask a question like, oh, how gross. Aren't you glad your mouth doesn't look like this? Or have you ever seen somebody's mouth look like this? And then in the clincher, I could re-show the picture of a really pretty mouth of somebody that had really good oral hygiene and followed the steps that I talked about. And I could end it by saying, don't you wish show the picture of a pretty mouth and say, don't you wish, don't you hope, by following these steps, you can have a mouth this pretty. And you would show the picture. So something like that, end it in a memorable way. Or you could tell a story that when you worked in your dad's dentist office, that people would come in with mouths that looked terrible, but by the time they got done learning how to take proper care of it, they came back in 6 months and their teeth were pretty and clean or something. But you need to end it in a memorable way. We never want to just stop our speech by saying, well, that's all I have today, and not end it with some sort of an impact. So make sure that you include that clincher. So at the very top, you will see we have our title. You might try a catchy phrase, smiles for miles or something like that. And then that's your catchy title. You will see, again, we begin our thinking process by our objectives, our general purpose to inform, specific purpose to inform my audience on how to have proper oral hygiene. My central idea is good oral hygiene includes proper brushing, flossing, and rinsing. My attention material, first thing out of my mouth, I ask a question, quote some statistics, or show a picture. My orienting material tells the audience who I am, what I'm going to talk about. And it can even include a little bit of background about your topic. Maybe we talk about how cavemen didn't have a very good life expectancy because they never kept their mouths clean and they died young. Maybe that was a bit of history. You can give a little background. Your B is going to be your credibility statement. How do you know about the topic? And your C is going to be your central idea statement, previewing the main points that you're going to make in the body. Your body explains those main points. Roman numeral is main point 1. Roman numeral 2 is main point 2. And Roman numeral 3 is main point 3. And you see that I've carried on my exact main points for my central idea. We've got to include those transition statements so that our audience knows when we're moving between our main points from one to the next. And then we have our conclusion. We signal the end of our speech, and then we restate the main points that we made briefly and end it. You will see that down here, there is a bibliography or works cited page. If I had required you to do research, you would have to have a bibliography works cited page done in MLA or APA format, and you would have to have parenthetical references inside your outline. If you had a reference here, maybe the author's name was Miller and the citation was from 2020, and this is where you got the rinsing information, you might put out next to this a parenthesis that says Miller 2020. And that tells me that you got this information from this citation that you had typed in down here. That's only if I've required you to do research. I'll take this one away for now because on the how-to demonstration speech, you're not required to do research. So this is how you do a complete sentence outline. Remember, it's not just 1 or 2 words, it is complete sentences. And you can refer back to this document as you're working on it to get the full explanation of each section. This document template is found in the Start Here folder. There's a blank document you can use to fill in your information, and then there's one that's already filled in with an example on how to tie a tie. That would also give you some help and explanation. Thank you.